Hey, welcome to the 37th episode of the Pixel Meditations. We are back from a short hiatus that we decided to take from the podcast. Both of us had other things going on. I was really busy with an internship, and Steve was moving to a new apartment and getting settled. And we just thought that it'd be good to take some time off from the podcast, kind of reassess and sort of see kind of where we want to take the podcast in the future. We've kind of decided mutually that we both really enjoy the format that we've been aiming at towards the podcast, and we're going to try and refine that as much as we can and focus on quality as well. Maybe getting some new hardware, trying to improve the quality for listeners. So, as far as this episode, we talk about the PS4. So, the legacy of the PS4, kind of where it stands in the gaming industry, um, just what it means for Sony, and also the future, where this will lead into the next generation, the PS5 for Sony. In particular, we cover the PS4 from the aspects of hardware. So we talk about kind of where the PlayStation stands in the line of consoles, relative to Xbox and Nintendo. And then we get into the software. So we talk about our favorite games. Um, I think for a lot of gamers, really the most important thing is the games. And, for us, it's certainly no different. Um, we really, really love the library, the genres. There's just so much to talk about with this console in particular.
Alrighty, guys, welcome back to the first Pixel Meditation episode in a long time. This is your host Steve and Toby. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, man, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's really cool to be recording a new episode. It's been a couple months, and we're back.
Yeah. I guess we decided to take a little break, but here we are again.
Yep, so we took a break, and that's due to sort of just life. I moved back to Taiwan, and I needed to find a new apartment, a new job, and life just got a little bit hectic for the first month I was back. Toby, you were doing an internship, and you were pretty busy yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I think life kind of just got in the way for both of us. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely something we want to continue, and we both really enjoy making episodes.
Yeah, and actually, I've been doing a lot of voice recording at my current job, and it kind of made me miss the podcast more because a lot of the stuff I record is not really related to my own interest. It's more stuff that's related to the company or kind of like the lessons we're teaching students. So it's really cool to be doing the podcast again. I think we both wanted to resume it. We were just trying to find a way to do so.
Yeah, for sure. We definitely both get a lot out of this, and we really enjoy making episodes for you guys. Like, there's a lot of topics we still want to cover, and I just think it's really fun to kind of work on this together still.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that before I let you take over with where our podcast is located, I just want to say that if you've been listening to us for a long time, we're not going to be changing that much. We're going to be covering video games, lifestyles, philosophy, media events. That could be like books, movie franchises, TV shows. It could be anything that personally relates to us. You can tell we're going to talk about it in more of an intellectual, hopefully more artistic and deep dive style. And so the Pixel Meditations will be changing a little bit in that we're going to keep our repertoire of episodes expanded beyond just gaming, but we are going to do gaming episodes. So we hope you guys enjoy the future episodes of the show. Toby, do you want to tell everyone where they can actually find the podcast now that we've changed?
Yeah, so we changed up kind of how our podcast works, like the back end of it. So you can still find our podcast through all of your normal apps, like like your podcasts apps, whichever podcast app you use. But we changed the actual hosting of the podcast from Podbean, which is a paid service, to a free service. So our podcast is now hosted on archive.org. And archive.org is kind of the postings are formulated into like an RSS through a free WordPress website. So our current website is thepixelmeditations.wordpress.com. And you can also find this link through iTunes or through your podcast provider. So, but it's like a slight change, but it's better for us. And yeah, I mean, in the end, it doesn't really change anything for the listeners, but it's just a slight change that benefits us, I think.
Yep. And if you guys want to find that even more easily, we're definitely going to be putting that in the link section on our description page for the episode. So check that out. All right. Well, guys, that's it for housekeeping. So let's move on to the episode. And today we're talking about the PS4. It's a long awaited episode.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can't believe we actually haven't made a dedicated episode to the PS4, considering it's kind of like its legacy and how significant it is in this console generation in particular, but just in general as far as all gaming is concerned.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that we haven't really done a lot of console episodes. I think I did a Saturn episode. I did the Sega Saturn episode by myself, but that was a bit of a different style. But I think that doing a console is kind of cool because even when I think about the PS4, it's all, like on a personal level, it's really interesting. Like it's crazy for me to think, but back in 2013 when the PS4 came out, I was just, finishing graduation, getting ready to move to Korea. And this generation's basically taken up the entire time that I've lived abroad. So I think that the PS4 for me personally is going to be a very special console phase of my life.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm somewhat similar. Like, the PS4 came out pretty much right when I was graduating college, and I was just starting off in the world. So I saw this sparkly new console being released by Sony, and I knew that I wouldn't really be able to afford it for several years. And I did eventually get one, but yeah, and upon release, it was definitely like really exciting, and you knew that Sony was up to something really cool with the PS4.
Yeah, and I mean, the PS4 came out, it was a little slow, I think, in the beginning, but then again, its competition wasn't really doing much either. So I think that the PS4 really took off for me in 2015, which is the year that I got it. But yeah, it's definitely very interesting. It's been a very long journey with it, and it's pretty much marked my entire time living abroad, and that's going to go on until next year when I could be possibly moving back to the States. So it's very fascinating to think about it in that way. But all right, we're going to be starting today's episode with kind of a quick little game. We're going to do an icebreaker game, and we're doing riddles today. So what we're going to do is we pick 3 games, and we're going to do a little riddle for each game and see how many points the other person can get, how many games they can guess. So Toby, you made your riddles. I hope you made them challenging, but not too challenging, but we're going to find out. And if you're ready, I guess I'm going to let you go first.
All right. So your first riddle is arrows, bunnies, and not so happy bloaters.
Arrows, bunnies, and not so happy bloaters. Wow, you made that one really short. That's like
Why? I don't know. Are yours long?
they're longer than that. But
Okay.
bloaters. When I hear the word bloaters, I think of Resident Evil.
Uh-huh.
Bunnies.
Yeah.
That's the part that's throwing me off. I can't remember any game I've played with rabbits.
So you're on to the right track with Resident Evil.
So is it Resident Evil 7?
It's not Resident Evil, I'll say that, but you're on the right track.
It's not technically a PS4 game, but it's not BioShock, is it?
No, it's not BioShock.
Arrows.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I can't figure this one out. Damn. Can you give me another hint?
I mean, it's one of the best games for the PS4.
Yeah, I kind of give up on this one.
The Last of Us. So do you remember that? Do you remember that scene when they're like hunting the bunny and it's like in winter?
No.
Yeah, that's pretty hardcore. Okay. I didn't think it'd be too hard because of bloaters, but whatever.
I was thinking Resident Evil. I don't know why, but yeah, I think we'll have to edit my abysmal attempt to guess that. But all right, you ready for yours?
Okay.
All right, here's my riddle. My heightened senses seek you out across this enchanted land. I am the wolf who is sent to find you and dispel the darkness of your hunt.
Okay. I mean, I kind of felt a little bit of The Witcher in that, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's The Witcher 3.
Okay, cool, sweet.
He's the White Wolf, and the hunt
Yeah,
trying
yeah,
to stop the hunt.
yeah. Okay, cool, sweet. All right, so you ready for your next one?
Yeah.
Okay, after you beat me, I will delete you.
Why are yours so short? Oh my god.
I don't know. I made them really short.
After I defeat you, I will delete you.
Yeah, after you beat me, I will delete you.
Is it Near Automata?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, yeah, I figured wasn't too hard because it has a sort of glitchy sci-fi sound to it, and I know you love that game.
Yeah, of course. And it's pretty famous for one of the endings to basically delete your game.
But all right, this one's kind of a weird one. I think it might be very easy or it might not be. I don't know. But here's number 2. I float to your home as others seek to derail me, smash me into smithereens. Vacant is your goal as mine flies to victory.
Whoa. Yeah, you made like actual poems. I made like riddle sentences. I don't know. Can you give me a hint? That's really hard.
Yeah, it's a game we used to play with Peter and Will.
What? Wait, Rocket League?
Yeah, it's Rocket League. The cars float around. And the goal
that's
is
really
empty.
cool. Yeah, that's actually a really sweet one. Okay, so I did another short one for you.
All right.
Okay. Crowded squares by day, dangerous dreams by night.
Crowded space by day. Dangerous dreams by night.
Crowded squares by day.
Oh, squares.
Dangerous dreams by night.
It's not Persona 5, is it?
No, it is. You got it.
It is? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why squares though? See,
I mean, I just like because that's like a city square. Like you kind of you split your the time in the game between kind of like crowded Tokyo and dreams at night. So
yeah, I kind of got the dreams part. You kind of enter people's palaces. But all right, my last one's a little. This is my favorite one. I was hoping because it's a little bit weird. All right, boundless cash flow and a creator with the might of an empire allows my quirks to become your desires. On the fence you may be, but I am a work of art that you may or may never understand.
Oh man, is this God of War?
Nope. Pretentious game. Controversial. A certain ex-Konami employee.
Oh, okay. Death Stranding.
Yeah, it's Death Stranding.
Oh, interesting.
Although it was kind of cool.
I guess who won that? I think it was maybe tied.
You guessed The Witcher right off the bat, and you got both the other two with a little bit of help. So you got I'll give you 2 points. 2 points.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, okay, so I think you kind of botched the first one and then you got the second two, so I think we tied.
It's a tie. Damn it. Stupid ties. All right. Anyways, let's get into the actual conversation then. That was we'll probably have to edit that section a bit.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so let's talk about the PS4 now. Now that we've talked about a few of the games, the significance of the PS4. It's really hard to talk about this in one single podcast, so we're going to do the best we can. But let's start with the actual hardware itself. What about the PS4 hardware makes this console so successful, so significant, and so impressive to you?
Yeah. Well, I think especially relative to the PS3, which used a fairly obscure cell architecture that was notoriously very, very difficult to program. So it kind of limited kind of like the development that occurred on the console. But Sony made the decision along with Microsoft to switch to the x86 architecture. So that brings the PS4 in line with kind of like computer console or computers, just computers in general, and obviously the Xbox. So it kind of like unifies most gaming development on the same architecture. So it makes the console very easy to program for, as well as to play games that are available on all of the consoles. So it's kind of like it's just like a really nice boon for developers mostly, but it's really good for consumers as well, because it really opens a lot of doors to games that definitely would not exist on the console.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was kind of a mission statement from Sony coming out of the gates, is they realized that the PS3 was almost actually a failed console after a couple
Yeah,
years
yeah.
into it. There were just people couldn't make games, and I think that they realized from that mistake because Sony has made very few mistakes in terms of its hardware in the past. Outside of that, so I think that what they wanted to do was make something exactly. They wanted to make the PS4 the most attractive console for developers, and part of that was making the architecture something that's really simple to use and simple to program for, and something that's something that's going to be less of a task for developers to work around and make them easy to jump on the Sony bandwagon rather than going to Xbox.
Yeah, for sure. Um, Although I think it's kind of interesting because if you look at the bare bones hardware of the PS4, if you squint your eyes, it's kind of hard to see the difference between the PS4 and the Xbox One, at least in terms of like the CPU and the RAM and the hard drive, like the base components. There's less of a difference, and this was something that people really talked about when the consoles were
Mhm.
first revealed. It's like you're basically just getting these kind of like computers, in all but name. And I think in the end, the PS4 is widely regarded as having the hardware edge over the base Xbox One. But yeah, I mean they're relatively similar.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually gotten both Microsoft and Sony a lot of criticism, is the fact that they haven't really been willing to take risks and sort of try their own, kind of like more of like a Nintendo approach where they're focused more on the games. It's like they sort of want to try to constantly be the most high edge, high tech game consoles, but in that way, they're chasing the computer but never beating it. And I think that's kind of why a lot of PC gamers might have a problem with something like the Xbox One or the PS4. They don't really have a lot to offer outside of exclusives in terms of the hardware.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and it definitely took quite a while for the PS4 to develop, a respectable list of exclusives. I mean, eventually it did, and we'll talk about a lot of those games. But initially, I mean, the games were laughable. Like, I don't know, did you ever play Knack?
No, in terms of the early stuff, like the really early PS4 games, I think the only two I played, which I really did enjoy, were Infamous 2 and Alien Isolation.
Okay, was Alien Isolation within the first year?
I think it was like 2014 because I had that game pretty early on in Korea and it had already been out for like a year at that point.
Okay, no, I mean, Alien Isolation is great, but I just mean, in general, it seemed like it was a little bit long for like actual really good exclusives to come to the console. I think really
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
biggest one that I remember probably is The Witcher 3. Like that's probably the biggest game
But that wasn't
initially.
even that was not even exclusive because that was also on the Xbox and I believe the PC.
What was it originally released as an exclusive or was it not?
No, I don't think so. I think it was always multi-platform. Yeah, the PS4 didn't really have a lot of exclusives to note in the first year. I mean, yeah, you had Infamous, which is actually quite a good game. You also had Killzone. Killzone, I can't remember the name of it. One of those Killzone games that was not very good. But yeah, I think to say that the PS4 started off very slow would probably be accurate, if not an understatement.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, well, okay. So I think as far as The Witcher 3, so it might come down to kind of like the I guess just like the superior experience that the PS4 offered. Did you know anybody who had an Xbox One who played The Witcher 3 on it?
Um, No, not really. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a couple of friends in my hometown that do have Xbox Ones, but I don't know anyone that's like been really open and talking about their experiences about it and really have like boasted about the Xbox One's like, capabilities. I know those people exist. I know there's definitely hardcore Xbox fans, but
Yeah,
out of my
yeah.
friends, most of them want the PS4 route.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's just widely regarded as kind of like the definitive experience for most of the games that were available on multiple platforms at the time.
Mhm.
So
Well, plus it was $100 cheaper.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, the Xbox One before the what is it? The X, I don't even know. Xbox One X, the Pro variant came out recently. I mean it was really just like kind of like second or third tier console.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably barely beating the Wii U, which is not really something to be proud of.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. But anyway, so yeah, so I think a lot of the games that came out in the initial time frame, the definitive version was on the PS4, even if they were available on the Xbox One.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure if that's true. I mean, I feel like the Xbox One's performance is really good. The hardware is definitely impressive enough, definitely to play something like The Witcher 3. I mean, hell, The Witcher 3 is now on the Switch, and I'm sure it must have some sort of frame rate issues or something being on the Switch. But, like, I think that the people that bought the multi platform games on the Xbox, for the most part, they were fine. They ran really smoothly, they looked good. And
Mhm.
I think the Xbox offers you, in terms of just performance and graphics, I think the Xbox offers you something that's very parallel to the PS4. I think the issue has always been for Xbox, at least since the original Xbox. I mean, maybe the Xbox 360, but the issue for the Xbox in the last decade has been just making games, getting game developers to actually buy into Xbox and Microsoft's plan, making very good games, and especially the Japanese market. The Japanese market has never taken to Xbox since its inception, which has really hurt it a lot. It hurt it quite a bit in the global market.
Yeah, for sure. And even in Europe, the Xbox, it has not really taken off. I was reading, and I found out that the PS4 has like 70 to 80% of the European market share on consoles. So
Huh, damn.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, that's sort of been like, I mean, the competition being the Wii U and the Xbox One. I think that like the PS4 literally just ran away with it. I don't think I've seen this much of a blowout in my entire life, to be honest, in terms of like a console winner.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of raw sales, I think the Switch has kind of done a lot for Nintendo, but I feel like it's kind of like it might you could make an argument that it's not even in the PS4 generation. It's it's
Yeah,
it's the next
exactly.
generation of console. Like as far as the generation that the PS4 belongs to, which is considered the eighth generation, it's the definitive winner. It's not even close.
Yeah, especially when you're talking the early years. I mean, the Wii U was the Nintendo console at that time, and even though it had some really cool exclusives and many people consider underrated, it couldn't compete on any level with the PlayStation 4, and maybe not even the Xbox. So I think the PS4. I think that winning this console war so easily, I really think it's amazing what Sony's done. But I kind of hope it doesn't get to their head because the Switch has come out really strong and the PS5, I think the one saving grace I think with the PS5 is that it's going to be backwards compatible. But I'm almost thinking like, with Microsoft and Nintendo working more closely together, like what is Sony going to do by themselves with the PS5 to set themselves apart and actually get people to buy into their console for the next generation? I feel like some people might be so happy with their PS4s that they might not even really want a PS5 yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's really interesting because I think in order for people to really buy into the PS5, they have to really have a 4K TV. If you don't have a 4K TV or you don't care about 4K, what's really the point? I mean, I guess because the latest game,
Exclusives, I
yeah, the,
guess.
the newest games and stuff are coming to the PS5, but if you don't care about 4K resolution, like there's not much really that's going to be offered, it seems like.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about the PSVR. I heard that they plan on integrating the PlayStation VR more heavily with the PS5. Of course, that's all speculation right now. No one really knows. There's actually been very little information leaked about the PS5 so far. It's still pretty much in the shadows. But I've heard that maybe the PSVR is going to be more incorporated with it, and they're going to keep trying to go towards that angle. And Sony said that they're going to try to that what they're trying to do is just make good games to appeal to hardcore gamers, which is actually probably kind of smart because I think the Switch has really captured a lot of the casual gamers. And I don't think that Sony can really cut into that right now. So I think maybe
Hmm.
trying to just stick to a plan of making really great AAA exclusives and getting as many indie companies to make games for your eShop and stuff. It's just is probably the way to go. But I'm kind of curious what the PS5 is going to do with its technology. They've talked a lot about the haptic. Have you know what this haptic technology with the PS5 controllers?
Like, is that just like kind of like the more of like the force or like the kind of like smart rumble features or whatever?
Yeah, it's gonna be much more like, I guess, intuitive and much more synced up with the game itself. It's gonna make the experience seem like you're actually interacting with the world in the game. Apparently, these haptic sensors are gonna be much more. They're gonna like hit certain parts of the controller more than other parts. It might like, I guess, like tilt your controller a little bit. It's gonna feel like you're actually like, I'm guessing stuff if you were taking like steps in a horror game,
Hmm.
maybe your controller would like have more rumble in the left and like right foot as you're stepping. I don't know much about this technology. I'm excited to learn about it, but yeah.
I agree that this kind of like haptic angle to the PS5 controller is probably something that they're going to try and implement. But in a way, it kind of reminds me of the PS4 touchpad, which is kind of
Mhm.
cool when it is utilized. But I have noticed that throughout many games, it's a quite underutilized part of the PS4. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is common with a lot of new technologies. If you notice like the 3DS, when the 3DS came out, they were really, really trying to like make the 3D part of it appeal.
mhm.
And a lot of early 3DS games had really in-depth 3D features. And by the end of the 3DS's lifespan, it seemed like the 3D feature was pretty much just an afterthought in every game. And I feel like that's just like the what is that touchpad on the PS4
Yeah,
controller.
yeah.
A lot of the very first games I played for PS4 really used that, and it was kind of cool, but a little bit gimmicky to be honest. And I think that Sony realized that, and they realized that just having good games with good controls is much more important than using this kind of hoaxy little touchscreen thing on there.
Yeah, it's just interesting because it was really pushed as like kind of like a marketing thing to kind of like, well, we're special. We have like a touchpad on our controllers. Like we're so this is our new thing. So it kind of the haptic thing kind of like reminds me of that in a way. But I mean, who knows? Like I think the Switch is kind of going for that a little bit with their controllers, but um I don't know.
Well,
Even they suffer a little bit from implementation. Like Nintendo games are generally, they use that really well, and then other games it seems lesser to a lesser extent.
yeah, I was really impressed with the gyroscope and the sort of scoped vibrations, how they can kind of be like more strong and lighter in the Switch Joy Cons, especially with Mario Odyssey. I think Mario Odyssey is the game I noticed it the most.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
How like when you're walking over a star, like your controller will like rumble a lot, but like when you get further away from it, it's just like a little bit. That's really cool. I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that we're definitely seeing a technological evolution with the rumble features,
Hmm.
and I mean the rumble features. I mean they've changed a little bit, but essentially with the PS4 controller, it's been the same thing since basically the PlayStation 1 and N64 era. The rumble hasn't gotten, it's gotten better, but it hasn't really evolved.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, then if the PS4 picks up this kind of technology and Nintendo has it going with a bunch of their games, then maybe it can really become kind of more like an industry standard to have these kinds of features in games. So that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, although I definitely think that the PS5, Sony's trying to set themselves apart with this haptic technology right now, or at least the way they're going to integrate it into their controller. But I guess like speaking of the VR, like neither one of us picked up the VR. I've had friends that have played it and they've said it's okay. Like there's some cool games for it, but their main problem with it is that they seem to complain with the game selection. There's just not enough PlayStation VR games. But Sony's basically made this VR console or a VR system or headset, whatever you want to call it, that comes with the PS4 for a relatively cheap price. I think it's around like 150, $200.
Hmm.
And I mean, I don't know. Have you gotten a chance to try that out at all? Or
No, I haven't. I haven't really played it with anything.
so I'm wondering, do you think it's smart that the Sony keeps trying to support this, or do you think it's kind of just like a bust for them?
I think it's good for Sony to be exploring it. Um, but to be perfectly honest, I don't think VR is really ready for the implementation that would be really fun for people. I think so like as far as like video games are concerned, there's a significant limitation with VR. You can't really have a lot of walking and movement because it ends up making the user feel kind of sick and dizzy. So there's actually
Yeah.
like significant limitations to VR that have not really been overcome, and it's not really known how these limitations can be overcome. But I think people tend to think of VR as, oh, of course, it's the obvious future of gaming. Like obviously, like in 20 years and everything will be VR because that's the future. But they kind of like they're seeing the future, but they're not seeing the steps to the future. And I feel like there's significant problems with it, and it's more gimmicky than anything else, despite the hype, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's questionable that VR is definitely the future of gaming. I think it's very questionable at this point. But I think that the VR, yeah, I think that when you're going to see like really amazing innovation in VR, it's going to end up being like Oculus or the Vive or something. I just think that PlayStation's always going to be a step behind, and that the only advantage they really have is that they have it backed by their console. So if they had like all their exclusive games playable in VR, that would be a really impressive feature, and I think that could potentially sell it compared to the Vive and the Oculus Rift, which also struggle with producing enough games to satisfy their base. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that it just seems like Sony, in terms of like the technology and like hardware, is always going to be a step behind these other companies because they don't want to invest in trying to make a VR headset. They're trying to basically invest in a console and make a VR set that's going to be like partnered with that.
hmm and also I think Sony really they're probably not going to release, if they do release a VR headset, they're not going to release like a really high end headset like the Oculus Rift or something like that. It's probably going to be like really like consumer grade, not
Yeah.
not that expensive. It's just not worth it to them to develop something that's really expensive that only a few users can really have anyway. And honestly, like VR really struggles at even the highest end for gaming. Like I said, just because it's really hard to find really good implementations that work well and make sense and don't end up making the users feel sick or something like that. Um, so I don't know. So I think it remains to be seen. I'm really skeptical of that future, at least right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that anyone who's listened to a lot of our episodes can probably tell that we're both massive VR skeptics, and neither one of us have really adopted into it because I feel like we've had this conversation, different shades of the same conversation throughout a few of our episodes. But I want to talk to you about like when we kind of alluded to it, but winning the console wars. Like, what has this meant for Sony? Because right now you have Xbox One; it sold 46 million consoles, according
hmm
to what you wrote. And as of September 2019, the PS4 sold over 102 million. And when I looked up the Wikipedia stats, it looked like there's only about four consoles that have sold over 102 million. Oh, sorry, that have sold over 100 million. And amazingly, I think you have three Sony consoles in there: the PlayStation 1, the PlayStation 2, and the PlayStation 4.
hmm
So Sony's on quite a run here. But what do you think it means for like Sony to actually win this console war? What do you think are like the benefits and maybe some of the detriments that Sony might face?
So I, like you said, like you kind of alluded to this yourself. But I mean, I think it's really good for Sony. It's really good for the consumers in general, just because it cements gaming as something that's really part of Sony's business model. Um, I think if you look at Sony's what like kind of like the stuff that they produce, gaming is has become such a huge significant part of their market, and it's not like they're going to stop making games or consoles anytime soon. So it's good for the consumer in that end. But as you were saying, I think there's a danger of Sony becoming too complacent in kind of like their way of approaching gaming. So like Nintendo's obviously taking a completely different path, and with streaming services, although I think the future of streaming services is not exactly clear because some stuff like Stadia has kind of like flopped on its face, and nobody really believes Stadia is going to be anything significant. But when you see the future of gaming in kind of like the light of streaming and the potentials that offers, Sony should have a little bit of pause in kind of like this high end market that they're going for with gaming. Although honestly, I think if you consider that the PS5 has hardware that's kind of like going up against like the equivalent of like a PC that would probably be like $1,200 at least, you know, and offering that for like $500 to the consumers. That's actually a pretty good business proposition. So at least right now, before there is a really competitive streaming service, I think that the Sony has a good business model.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with all that. And I think that it's interesting because most people that own a Switch also own another console. Most people don't just own a Switch,
Hmm.
especially actual gamers, like not just casual gamers. But
Hmm.
when I've seen surveys in the past, it's like everyone that has a Switch also has like a PS4 or an Xbox. So if Sony looks at this as like, okay, people have the Switch, but clearly they see this thing as sort of a hybrid. They don't see it like bringing out necessarily all the best games they're going to play in the next 5, 10 years. They're going to either choose an Xbox or a PlayStation still. So we just basically have to focus on beating Xbox. They can sort of let Nintendo play their own game and succeed. And I still think that there's room for two winners in the market. So I think that basically it comes down. I think they're going to be focused on Xbox again, but I don't know. I mean, maybe they do have some sort of way that they're going to try to answer the Switch or some of the portability of the Switch. I think they kind of threw it away in the Vita, which is I think something that really had a lot of amazing potential. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. I think that this is such a weird time. I think Nintendo's really done something interesting by starting a new console right in the middle of the generation
Hmm.
because it kind of gives the other companies time to look at it and maybe change their strategy a little bit. But it's also basically kind of makes Nintendo have their own mark and like they're not competing in the same holiday season to sell consoles. So it's kind of interesting how this is going to play out. But I think that the PS4, the fact that a lot of these games will be backwards compatible with your PS5, like PS5 will play all PS4 games. That's amazing, but it also means there's going to be a lot of people like me that are like, well, I'm not buying a PS5 until there's enough exclusives that I'm going to actually, get my money's worth out of that thing.
Yeah, for sure. I think when I move back to the States, if I end up buying like a 4K TV at some at some point, it just seems ridiculous. I don't really care about 4K, but if I do buy a 4K TV and the PS5 is out, then I'll probably just buy it so I could play all my games. What would be really interesting, and I really hope. I actually don't know. I should know this. Should have researched it before we started our episode. But before the digital copies that I bought for the PS4, can I play
Uh
those 4K on the
huh.
downloads? Like if I had a PS
oh,
Pro, could I play like those
oh,
games now? PS4 Pro.
I thought you were gonna ask me if you could play those games on the PS5, and I was like, I have no idea, man.
No, I'm sure.
But
I mean, I'm sure I can. That'd be really absurd if like it's backwards compatible, but you can't play your old downloaded games or your digital games.
well, you'd hope not, right? That would be really sad. But no, I think you could. Yeah, if you were to buy a PS4 Pro today, you'd be able to play all your games you bought on your PlayStation 4, no problem.
Yeah, but and it would be like at 4K resolution.
I think so. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
we probably should both know a little more about this,
yeah,
but yeah, I'm pretty sure it should just function. The hardware should already be innately in that PS4 Pro, and it's going to run your games on
yeah.
4K TV, assuming the hardware is there and the TV's there.
Yeah, because I think it's pretty cool. I mean, honestly, I think I mean, this is kind of like another aspect of the PS4 is, it's kind of like the beginning of games being mostly digital, or like the potential for them to be mostly digital, and I think the libraries at least like Sony manages the libraries pretty well. Like it's not as draconian as like Nintendo has been in the past. Like it seems like your games are going to transfer well, and if that process happens, I think that's really cool. Like you instantly have like a library of games available on the PS5 when you first log into it. That'd be really great. I really hope that works out.
Yeah, it's really hard to say. I mean, I think that for Sony, there's an advantage to doing it, and there's a disadvantage for doing it. I mean, like I said, I mean, I think you were the one telling me they're planning on losing money for the first like 2 or 3 years the PS5's around, and the PS4 is going to still be making them the most money, and even in that time period.
Hmm.
Were you the one that said that?
I may have. I mean, that's a pretty common thing that happens in a lot of consoles. Is at the beginning they sell their consoles at a loss, pretty much. It takes them several years. The PS5 was certainly this way. It takes them several years to build up enough sales to really see any profit. So, and also, I mean, they try and offer consoles that cost pretty much. Like they're not really making money off them, unless you're Nintendo, of course, because they can make money out of anything. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've talked about some of this stuff already, but let's move on to the pros and cons of the PS4. I think
Okay.
this is really important. We talk about, the good and the bad of this console, even though I think there's definitely more good. But so I'm going to talk about the first thing here and say that the PS4 in their generation had the best. They had the best exclusives. It's hard for me to say that with the Wii U because there's definitely some really great games that I've gotten to play from that era on the Switch. Games like Donkey Kong Country, Tropical Freeze. They brought over like Hyrule Warriors. They brought over like Mario. So they're definitely good on Nintendo to bring some of those games that people didn't play. But I think that like Sony's done the PS4's had a really solid run of exclusives. But I'm still a little bit disappointed just because I think the era of exclusives is pretty much over for Xbox and Sony. Because when I look at the PS1 and the PS2, there were so many good PlayStation exclusives that it's basically sold the console by itself. But considering what happened with Nintendo and Xbox, I think that a strength of the PS4 has been exclusives that have been some of the best released in the console era.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Um, yeah, there's been just a slew of really great games. I mean, so there's so many great games on the PS4 that you can't even really consider yourself a true gamer unless you played, a significant handful of them. Like games that have just come to really symbolize kind of where the gaming industry is right now in 2019. Um, so many games have come out, and yeah, like you just it's just part of the culture now, you know.
Yeah, I think Sony has had some really great first party and second party companies under their wings, and like they've really made use of them. Like Santa Monica bringing God of War, like rebooting that series was just like such an amazing like. It's amazing they did it, and it's amazing the way they did it. Like they could not have executed that any better. Like Naughty Dog is finally bringing The Last of Us 2. Uncharted 4 was such a great ending to that series, even if it was basically more of the same. Like their AAA developers just seem to constantly deliver like hit after hit. Like pretty much like there's very few first party games from Sony that end up bad, I guess. There probably are some though. I shouldn't say that too loosely.
Yeah, yeah. Although as you mentioned, I think just the idea of exclusives are becoming less and less of an important thing, especially for Sony and Microsoft, which I think they tend to just like want all of their games to come out for everything, just because they tend to make the most money that way. Um, yeah,
Well, I think developers, yeah.
you'll
Like
develop,
AAA
yeah,
developers.
AAA
Like
developers.
third party, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I guess it kind of yeah, remains to be seen how that'll go in the future, but
Yeah, so I say that one like it's a little bit bittersweet to me because I'm like thinking about how amazing the original PlayStation 1 and 2 were with exclusives, but still, a lot of the very best games I've played in the last decade or so have been on PlayStation consoles, so I can't really complain too much. There's still really great games to be played and better than what Xbox is offering you.
uh-huh. Yeah, and to be honest, I'm not really sure if it really benefits the consumers to have exclusives.
That's certainly questionable because of course, like a game like The Witcher 3, everyone got to play it, right? No matter what you owned. Like now literally everything. You can go to your
Yeah.
PC, your Xbox, your PlayStation, or your Switch. So it's really amazing how many people got to play that great game and experience it and fall in love with it. But definitely, if you're looking at spending $500 and you get no exclusives with that, I imagine you'd be pretty angry.
Yeah, although you still get a really great piece of hardware, hopefully, to play your games. But
Yeah, but I think that it basically what it does is it just kind of keeps the competition there and it makes it so that Sony doesn't become complacent or Microsoft doesn't become complacent because like they could do that if every single game was basically just a multi-platform game.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think there's arguments kind of both ways on that. But I mean, yeah, there's just certain definitive games that I feel like every gamer has to play, like The Last of Us. um, I don't know. I doubt we'll ever see that on the PC. Maybe like in many years. But
Yeah, I don't think so. I guess we Crash Bandicoot's on the Nintendo Switch now, so crazier things have happened. But
yeah, but yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I mean, yeah, certain games have just really defined kind of like the eighth generation of console, and I think a significant number of those are PlayStation exclusives.
yeah, enough of them. I guess the other one for me, running down the list, like the hardware is really good on the PS4. I rarely see games that have FPS issues or have issues in performance. So
Hmm.
even though I own a Switch, which is newer, for instance, I just bought Doom last month, and it's not. It is cheaper on the PS4 because it's been out longer. But I mean, generally, if there's a game on the Switch or PS4, I've traditionally been buying games for the Switch. But I chose PS4 here just because I thought Doom is one of those games that has really, it has a lot going on performance wise, and I thought it would tax my PS4 less than it would my Switch and probably perform better. So in that way, I think that the PS4 is still it's held up really well considering it came out in 2013. It's still amazing how great games look on it and how well they play.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I just got Star Wars um Fallen Order. I don't know if you've heard about that game. Yeah, we've talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it does. I mean, okay, like there's some slight stuttering, but the fact that it's like a 2019 game playing on 2013 hardware, and the fact that it runs as well as it does and looks as amazing as it does, on my PS4 Slim is like incredible. Like seriously nuts. Like if you have just a computer, like a desktop from 2013, the chances of it being able to play a 2019 game are pretty rare. Pretty unlikely.
Yeah, definitely. Very unlikely. I mean, I had a computer pretty much from that period of time, and it could barely run stuff from like 2017. So you basically need to upgrade.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think having like a unified hardware that has over 100 million units out in the market, like it's really great for the consumer because you really get like a full lifespan, like from 2013 until now. um I mean, I really think that's awesome that you know the same hardware is working now and will until at least 2020, so that's pretty cool.
It is. All right. Next up is the diverse library. I know we're going to talk about the good games a lot in this episode, but I just want to talk about how diverse they are because I find it kind of weird when people are like, I don't think I'd like the PlayStation. I don't think there's any games I'd want to play. Because in my opinion, I'm like, okay, like unless you're a massive, massive, massive Nintendo fan, you just want to play their series.
Hmm.
I feel like the PlayStation has something for everybody. You got your RPGs, you got your shooters, you got your platformers, you got your racers. You literally have everything. And I mean, my PS4 collection is pretty robust, and it has a lot of games in different genres. So I mean, I don't know. I've had so many unique experiences on the PS4 that I think that anyone, unless you're a massive Nintendo fanboy, there's plenty of great games on the PS4 you'll find to play.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And it's awesome too because I think in each case, like each genre, you can pick a classic game that's really really awesome. Like each genre is very well represented. It's not like there's only shooters or only RPGs or something. Like there's diverse genres, and then there's really really standout games in every genre. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and totally. And I mean, the fact that they also got so many AAA developers and indie developers to put games on their platform too. I mean, it's just their eShop has so many freaking games now. It's just nuts. Like you could be playing PS4 for another 10 years probably.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and that's another thing is it's really great to see Sony maintain the PS4 into the PS5, so we'll be able to keep playing the games we haven't played because there's definitely for me there's definitely I have limited gaming time as it is, and yeah, there's probably like a large number of games I still want to play. So the fact that that's gonna the architectures are maintained and you can still play those old games going forward, I think that's really going to be really cool.
Definitely. I mean, I'm the same way. There's quite a bit in the back catalog that I'd like to check out too. I mean, like I said, I've been finally getting to the BioShock collection. And I just started BioShock 2, and I'm still playing through Persona 5. So I mean, I'm still like kind of behind on the times in a lot of ways. So
Mhm.
there's a lot for me too. All right, let's talk about some of the cons. I think that this is important to talk about a couple of these. And the biggest one for me by far, well, it's tied for the biggest, is the controller battery life. God, the controller battery life makes me so frustrated. I feel like
Yeah.
every time I put on my PS4, my controller's like, "Oh, you're really low battery." I'm like, "Oh, how? Why? Always, always."
Yeah, it's kind of funny because the PS4 controller is not a cheap controller. And if you compare it to the the Switch Pro, which seems to just never require charging, yeah, it's kind of a shame.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like maybe you could argue that there should be a standard battery life of enough to basically beat a game. Because with a Switch Pro controller, I can play through an entire game and without having to charge it one time. Whereas the PS4 controller, they're literally dying every 3 or so hours. Like I don't know exactly, but probably 3 or 4 hours.
I think, the lithium ion batteries from 2013 just weren't up to snuff compared to now, I guess. I'm guessing that's the thing. I'm not really sure. But
I
yeah,
think so.
I mean, good on Nintendo for making the Switch Pro so awesome. It really has become my favorite controller ever. I tend to use it for, Steam games as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I will say I like the PS4 controller. The design of it's great. They pretty much kept the classic controller there. It's ergonomic. It feels good in your hands. It's familiar. It's just the battery life. So I mean, I guess like if Sony should just be taking notes on this and fixing this for the PS5.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I guess one hardware complaint that I have, which I've encountered recently, and it's a little bit annoying to me. So the PlayStation 4 doesn't have an audio out uh, port, and it's really annoying. Or sorry, it's really annoying if you are trying to play the PS4 on like on a TV or a monitor without an HDMI cable. You pretty much have to go
Mhm.
HDMI, and the audio signal is utilized by the HDMI cable. So there's not like a
Right.
like a secondary way to plug in the audio. And this is just kind of like, it's not just Sony that's doing this. It's generally, I think, most hardware manufacturers, they tend to
Yeah.
prefer HDMI, and I don't like it because it limits the type of TVs you can connect it to, because a lot of TVs don't have speakers connected to them, and if there's no speakers, then you're kind of screwed. Um,
Yeah, no, that's a totally valid point that I actually never really thought of before. Just because I've been using cheap free TVs that've been in my apartment for
yeah,
like 5 years.
yeah.
But yeah, no, that's a totally valid complaint.
Yeah, I wish there was like a different audio solution. I mean, in the end, it probably just makes the PS4 slightly cheaper to not have that. But yeah, I mean, at the moment, my current solution is to have a USB speaker connected to the freaking controller with a cable. It's like really
My
lame.
God,
It's really lame.
that is super lame.
Yeah. Like,
Jeez,
I
dude,
mean, also
you're
the
Frankenstein over there with
Frankenstein.
yours.
No, really. And the PS4 has the ability to connect to Bluetooth, but it can't connect to Bluetooth speakers. Come on.
Yeah, that's
Just
strange. That
make it
is really
connect to,
strange.
if it
What the
connect if
hell?
it connected to Bluetooth speakers, it wouldn't be a problem. But it's just like a nitpicky thing, because most people are going to be connecting it to an HDMI TV that has speakers on the
Hmm.
TV, and the TV has audio out, so you're completely fine. It's just I have like a weird setup that doesn't work with that, so whatever.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah, that's interesting. You talk about this now because that's something. Yeah, I imagine most people probably don't have this problem, but there are people that probably would like to actually externally link the audio out to like a set of speakers or something to get better
Yeah.
audio.
Yeah, but I mean, like, even the Switch has obviously like the audio cable, like it has the audio out. You can
Hmm.
connect it directly to anything you want directly from the Switch. It's not that bizarre of a thing, but
Right.
whatever.
Well, I think as far as the negatives, the last one I want to talk about very briefly, because we covered this before, is the backwards compatibility. Just because Sony has always offered backwards compatibility with the PlayStation 1, 2, and 3.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, not the PlayStation 1, obviously not the PS1, but the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 3 were almost completely backwards compatible.
Uh-huh.
So it's really disappointing to own a lot of PlayStation 1 and 2 games and not be able to play them on the PlayStation 4. Obviously, like you said, this is probably an architecture issue. It's probably an issue of Sony basically having won the console war, so they don't need to focus on their old games, whereas Xbox has been much better about preserving them.
Mhm.
But it is really frustrating as someone who's basically been living in a place where I have very limited space. I can't have a lot of stuff, and I have a few PlayStation 1 and 2 games that I'd really like to play again.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think backwards compatibility is really great when it's possible. And honestly, like it doesn't, like, I think it's more than just the architecture. Like Sony has the resources to make these things happen. Um like certain franchises are just really, really horribly treated. Like, what the heck, like with Metal Gear Solid, like with the PS4, like, um how do you play Metal Gear Solid 3 now in 2019?
You would need to have a PS2 or a PS3.
They know that's just ridiculous. Why is that the case? Why do you have to have a old hardware to play these games? And it's not like they're available on like PC, because they're not, and they never will be.
Right. I mean, it's weird, yeah, when you have modern installments, when you have a more recent installment of a series, especially when they connect, like you use Metal Gear Solid, it is kind of weird. It's like for people that had never played a Metal Gear Solid game, it's probably not really tempting to play Metal Gear Solid 5, which is technically canon and in the middle of other Metal Gear Solid games in the timeline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's a criticism for all of the game manufacturers, is they need to kind of like curate their libraries a little bit better and to be a little bit more respectful of like kind of like the previous games that have been released. I mean, it kind of relates to our last episode that we made, like the consumeristic side of gaming. Like, I think a lot of it is really just about selling games and kind of making money. There's less of a respect for gaming as kind of like a media that deserves to be preserved over time, because a lot of these games are going to be lost if no one ever cares about them. Like, what if Sony just came out, or Konami just came out and said, we lost the source code to Metal Gear Solid 3. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, this has happened before with a few other games, so it's not impossible. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
but yeah, no,
it's like probably the source code is kept like that. Like, it's usually it's in like a box or something in Konami's like headquarters.
some little disc or computer that's just sitting in the dusty like attic or something. But yeah, no, that's a very good point, and I definitely agree with you. I mean, I think a lot of gamers definitely share that sentiment. And if you look online, there's definitely plenty of people that are like, "What the heck? Why can't I play my PS2 and PS3 games on my PS4?" It's a common complaint with it, but with how good the PS4's been, I don't think Sony's prioritized it. Um, all right, let's move on here. You wrote this one actually, franchises and services. So I'm assuming you want to talk about stuff like the streaming service they have, PlayStation Now, and like their online the eShop and stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, I think with PlayStation Now and like a bunch of those services, like they're kind of like budding aspects of kind of like the Sony I don't know,
Brands.
brand or ecosystem or whatever. They're kind of playing around with that kind of stuff, but some of the services are really interesting. Like, have you ever connected your PS4 to your PC and tried to play a game through that?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so like you can totally stream any game from your PS4 to like a PC and play it on the PC. And I totally done it. It's a little bit laggy, but like it works just fine.
How laggy is it? It's pretty playable then?
No, it's totally playable. It's actually really fine. Like, it's a solution, because this is relates to like my monitor
Audio issues.
Yeah, because like if you don't have a monitor at all, say you just have a PS4, but you have a laptop, like you can stream your PS4 to your laptop and play it. So I mean, that's really cool. Like there's use cases. I mean, I feel like it's really niche and not a lot of people do that, but it's available to you to stream to your laptop from your PS4. So that's pretty cool.
No, that is really cool.
Yeah, and I think Sony's kind of exploring streaming options for games, although they really struggle with the same issues that a lot of people have with it, where it's the service is buggy or slow or whatever, or like your internet's just not good enough to handle being able to stream a game from a server somewhere. But yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think Sony's really good at kind of exploring, but like maybe they need to just keep going with that, and I don't know. I guess we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like the biggest one for me, and this goes back to the backwards compatibility issue, is the PlayStation Now. I mean, there's a good reason they wouldn't want to release PlayStation 3 games if they're trying to get you to subscribe to pretty much the entire PS3 library for a monthly fee.
Yeah, yeah.
However, it's very expensive. We talked about this a little bit in the past. It's very expensive. It's like $20 a month if you're buying it just on a monthly basis. It's a little bit cheaper than that if you subscribe for a year, but you're still paying like $100 to $150 just to play basically old games. And like it's still based on your like basically how fast your internet's running and your internet speed too, because these games are all streaming. It's a streaming way. You're streaming all these old PS3 games. So it's still not perfect, for a lot of people, games don't run all that smoothly.
Mhm.
Unless you have really good internet, it's not even something you can really get. So it just kind of adds insult to injury for people that want to play their old PS3 games on the PS4 and have bad internet. Like,
Yeah. I really don't know. It's interesting. I think our internet's all gonna have to get a lot better for streaming to really be something that anybody takes seriously. And that's just a really complicated question. Is I don't know how long it's gonna take for our internet to really improve that much. Um, like it's surprisingly expensive to upgrade internet. Locally,
mhm.
and a lot of places really just don't have that kind of connectivity, and they really struggle with even just the most basic like DSL connections, let alone like fiber connections or something like that. Like that just seems so far away from now.
Yeah, it's interesting, but I just think it's kind of a little bit. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it. It's really cool that they allow you to stream their entire PS3 library or most of it, but it's also, it's like they could have at least offered you to be able to purchase these games individually, because there's really just a few that I want to play, and I'm like, man, if I could just like purchase those 3 games I want from the PS3 library, those 3 that I really want to play, instead of having to just either stream all of them or get nothing. Like it just be another. It just seems like they're not being very versatile and accommodating here. They just kind of want to. They're creating these services that don't really work that well, and they're not being very lenient to people who might not want to completely subscribe into these services.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It seems. I mean, I think their approach to it is a little bit schizophrenic. Like they want people to download games, but then they also offer this PlayStation Now service, which is like subscription based. I don't know. I mean, I don't. I think it kind of reveals that they don't really know what the future holds, and they're kind of just like trying to put their eggs in multiple baskets and kind of seeing what sticks.
Hmm.
And I'm not really sure. We've talked about this in the past, but Sony has a problem with like not really committing to things, especially like radically new, interesting things, and like their kind of like products can sometimes suffer and be a little bit half baked because you can tell they just haven't
Yeah.
committed to it. Like that's why kind of why the Vita died is they just have problems committing even if the underlying hardware and technology is good and people like it. There's just sometimes it's just like fundamental flaws that kind of like kill it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And it does seem like, it seems like Sony's almost like Sega is in that way. They sort of launch a lot of different products, a lot of different ideas, and some of them are just bound to die because they just too much. It's like, you can't be dipping your toes in 10 different like technology markets trying to make like VR, trying to make a handheld system, trying to make a console, trying to manage a lot of, like development teams. Like it just seems like Sony sometimes just bites off a bit too much, more than they can chew.
Yeah, for sure. And also like they're a bit self-sabotaging too because it's like they know that they're not fully committing to something, and they're kind of just seeing if it works, but that low level of commitment kind of from the get-go is kind of kind of what kills it in the end anyway. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing when you look at like the 3DS. The 3DS had one of the most miserable launches that you could imagine, and one of the worst launches in history. Like the first year was just abysmal for the 3DS, and it seemed like Nintendo almost should have given up on it, but they didn't, and they kept pouring the resources into it. They kept
Uh-huh.
making games for it. They kept going. They cheapened the console, and it ended up being a massive success. And I'm wondering, it seems like Sony almost was basically like, well, if the 3DS flops, we have a good chance of succeeding, but if they succeed, we're screwed. So it seems like they were almost like contingent on Nintendo's success rather than just focusing on their own success.
Yeah.
I could be wrong there, but that just it seems like that a little bit.
Yeah, maybe. It's almost like I want to say, I mean, this kind of comes down to like kind of like the culture of Sony itself, like as a company. I think that they tend to be a little bit more shrewd than Nintendo is. I think Nintendo clearly, like, it really comes across like really really obviously that they're very very kind of idealistic and very passionate about their products, and they almost
Yeah.
sell them on the basis of their passion alone. Like the 3DS kind of flop, but they released a version of the 3DS that didn't have the 3D, and they stopped pushing that as the main selling point, and the game, and it went on to be pretty much like the most successful handheld ever.
Yeah, and it's just amazing. I mean, there's so many Vita fanboys. Like, there's so many people that just love the Vita, and I mean, if it just seems like if it had more support and like 2 more years of like actual sustained effort in making it successful, it could have gotten there,
Oh yeah.
even if it didn't beat the 3DS in
Oh
sales.
no,
But
definitely.
it just they gave up on it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I've heard it's kind of a little bit of an aside, but I heard really that one of the major killing points of the Vita was the proprietary memory cards, which are like absurdly expensive, and even to this day are absurdly expensive.
Hmm.
Um, they like you couldn't upgrade the memory of the thing without like spending an arm and a leg because
Damn,
Sony only allowed proprietary memory chips, and that's it. So that's
I
just
never knew that part
yeah.
of it.
It's
Interesting.
kind of like an example of kind of like the self sabotage. That because they obviously made a lot of money off of those, and they wanted to make money. You know, they could have been like they could have just released it with generic SD cards, and maybe that would have been something that the market would have really liked. They
Right.
would have been really cheap to expand the memory, but no, they had to have these proprietary memory things, and yeah.
That's a bit like Sony though, to want the newfangled technology that they have complete control over.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to we can. I mean, it'd be really cool to actually look more into the Vita later. I think without playing one, I don't think we're going to do an episode on it, but it would be an interesting thing to research and learn more about because I don't know a whole lot about the Vita.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely for both of us. It's kind of something we don't have a lot of direct experience with, but it's the whispers of the Vita are pretty strong.
Definitely. All right, man. Well, I think we've done quite a bit. We've done a lot of talking about the system itself. I think we should talk about the games that impacted us and our experience with the PS4 and created the memories that we're essentially going to take with us from this console. So we both made a list of 3 to 5 games that we thought were very iconic and sort of are symbolic of our experience, our personal experience and reflection of the console. So some of our games are the same, but I guess I'll go first since I'm talking right now. And this seems like an obvious pick, and I'm playing it again. So Persona 5 is definitely like one of the 3 games that I'm always going to remember from the PS5, PS4.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you played Persona 5 a little bit. I mean, I guess like what was your experience with it?
I mean, I played it a little bit, like you said, and it's definitely a game I want to go back to in the future. But yeah, I mean, I really, really love that game. It's very, very well done. The just how stylish and fun it is. The music, just the feeling of the game. The story is really interesting. Yeah, everything about it's just great. It's a really fantastic RPG experience.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge Atlas fan, and they're the people who published all the Persona games. And I've enjoyed a couple of the Personas. Like I enjoyed Persona 2 and Persona 4, but Persona 5 just blew away my expectations of pretty much any JRPG in the modern era. Like it has some of the most fun, fast-paced combat that really makes you think about your opponent's weaknesses and stuff. The dungeons are just fucking amazing. Like I don't swear very much on the podcast, but like the fact that they detailed all these palaces to be reflections of like the like messed up psyche of like whoever's palace it is. Like if the teacher is kind of like a sexual perv, there's going to be like half naked girls kind of statues in the dungeon. Like the dungeons are just gorgeous. They kind of added some stealth elements in there. And I just absolutely love that basically you're like playing through like an animated, gorgeously animated version of like real life Tokyo, and every character is just like really fleshed out. I just love interacting with my characters and exploring the dungeons. It's just like everything I wanted in a modern like RPG.
Yeah, for sure. No, and having gone to Tokyo after playing that game, it's really cool to kind of like hit up like some of the places that are represented in the game, like train
Yeah.
train stations and stuff like that. Like it's really cool. It's fantastic. Like I think people don't realize how well that game actually represents Japan, which is weird, but it's really great.
Yeah, it is. I mean, everything. It's like every little detail. Like the loading screens are literally like when you go on the subway, it's just like a bunch of people standing on the subway. Like like how crazy crowded Tokyo is. Like it captures like that city so well, and just like the fact that it has its own story, its own characters, its entire separate like journey
Hmm.
alongside the real life elements. It's just amazing. Like everyone should play that game if you like
Yeah,
JRPGs.
yeah,
If you don't like JRPGs, you're probably not gonna like it.
yeah, yeah. I suspect in the future we may talk more about Persona 5, but anyway, so my first game, I guess since you mentioned an RPG, I'll mention an kind of RPG. So I really
Mhm.
really love Near Automata, another game we
Mhm.
both love, and I've talked about this game extensively in the past. But it's funny because initially, I think when we were talking about this game, you were just like, "Oh, I don't think you'll like that game. It's too tedious. Like you won't like it. It's too tedious or something like that." And you're right; it is very tedious. Like the fighting can be kind of like that. But I think really for me, what's amazing about the game is just the incredible music, the really really cool story, just the background. I love the characters. Uh, like I love the fact that you're androids, and I don't know. It's just like everything about that game is just really 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 awesome.
Yeah. I thought I figured you would really like the sci-fi elements and the fact that it's a little bit quirky and weird. Like the game's
Yeah, it's very
personality seems to
quirky.
almost match your own
it's
in a lot of
it's
ways.
very
I
quirky.
just thought I didn't think that maybe you'd like the combat. I thought the combat might be a turnoff for you
Uh
because
huh.
it's very action oriented. However, it's still a bit weird. It's not like fluid. It's not as fluid as something like Zelda where it's so simple you just kind of swipe your sword. But like it's a little bit convoluted and like, trying to change around like your chips to make you have different attacks.
Hmm.
I thought that part of the game might have been a turnoff for you. Because even for me, it was a little bit of a turnoff in the beginning. But yeah, I grew to really like Near Automata, and I mean, like, I don't know what else to say. Like the soundtrack's amazing, has a really cool premise. The environments are great, and the combat's really fun once you get used to it. I had a problem that game when my PS4 crashed and deleted all
Oh,
my files. Near Automata was in there, so it's one of those games I just haven't really gotten back to, but I definitely want to. It's a game I really want to beat, so it's very deserving of being on this list.
yeah, absolutely. No, it's a really really great game. We've talked about it extensively, so yeah, it's awesome.
All right, my number two pick is like a multi-platform game, but I experienced this game on the PS4, whereas you experienced this game on the Switch, and that is Sonic Mania. I freaking love Sonic Mania. It's another game that I've kind of recently revisited and just like refallen in love with. And Sonic Mania, I think, has become my favorite Sonic game. I just adore it. Like the levels are just fantastic. The way they remixed some of the old levels and also added in new levels with the same exact theme. Like Chemical Plant has like a classic stage level and a brand new level they made in the same exact environment. The music's awesome. Every level is completely different platform elements, and it's extremely challenging but not cheap, and that's why I really like it. Like Sonic Mania to me is like one of the best 2D platformers pretty much ever.
Yeah, for sure. No, I completely agree. It's I think what makes it so cool is it's kind of like an ode to, old Sonic and what made Sonic great, clearly, because you have like the stage ones, which are, just direct, versions of, older games, older stages from previous games. And then you have like the stage two, which is like, you know brand new and exciting, and they add a lot of unique ideas, and there's aspects that you've never seen before in a Sonic game, but it maintains kind of like the format that's so classic and so awesome throughout. It's just like a really great addition. It's I really love playing that game. Like I was really surprised as well. I'm not like a huge Sonic fan myself, but I played through that on the Switch and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, no, it's really amazing. And I mean, it's like everything you really wanted in a Sonic, and it makes you wonder why Sega's kind of tried to like push their 3D Sonic so much. But yeah, no, it's great. And I mean, the fact that it's only $20 too, like it's $20,
Yeah.
like you will definitely not regret spending your $20 on Sonic Mania. It's pretty much a must buy.
Oh yeah. No, for sure. Okay, so I think for me, the next game that I'm going to talk about is probably The Witcher. So we mentioned it.
Yeah, that's on both our
Yeah, it's on both
lists.
our lists. We mentioned it in this podcast already. Um, I learned it's not an exclusive to the PS4 today. But
I'm surprised you thought it
well, I
was.
mean, I don't know. I've never heard of anybody playing it on the Xbox. I know it's out for like multi platforms now, but I thought initially maybe it was released as an exclusive. But regardless, it doesn't really matter. But The Witcher is awesome. The story is really great. The combat's really great. I think it's probably the first open world game that I played, and I didn't feel like it was like a bad open world. Um, I'm
Yeah.
skeptical of the open world format. A lot of people really love that, and I think it is great. Like it has been implemented very very well in many games at this point. You can't really discount it now. We're in post Breath of the Wild world now, and yeah, like The Witcher is awesome. um they're making a TV show on it. I hope that's good. I guess we'll see. um Yeah, I mean it's just like one of the classic games of the eighth generation. It's just freaking awesome. I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I share your sentiments, and I'm really glad that I got it because when I first got my PS4, I really wanted a really good AAA game. Like I had Transistor, which was really cool, but it was like an 8-hour indie game. I really wanted the bang in awesome AAA game, and there wasn't really much to choose from. And so I was also skeptical of open world games. I was like, I really don't like games like, Assassin's Creed and games like that are just these like open world games where you have a million things you can do. There's not really a good central story. And so I got The Witcher 3 just because it looked really beautiful and people were hyping it up so much. I was like, well, there's nothing else to buy. Why don't I give it a go? Maybe I'll like it. And I just freaking fell in love with it. Like this, every side mission is just like so detailed. Like, every character really does feel like a real person. And you just get sucked into all these separate stories to the point where you don't even really care about the main story as much, and just the gorgeous world. Like, I love just like riding my horse down the trails and seeing like people hanging from the trees, the gorgeous sunsets. Like they just captured the books so well. Like everything about the books, like the dark atmosphere is there. The nudity is there, the barbarity is there, but there's also the beauty, like, these gorgeous mountains and like sunsets that you pass by and these really amazing, lively characters. Like they nailed The Witcher 3. Great game.
Yeah. No, it's super super awesome. Um, like a true classic for sure.
Well, I guess next for me is a controversial one. I'm going to say Metal Gear Solid 5. I know you have sort of negative feelings towards this
Yeah.
game, and a lot of people do at this point, and I totally understand why. But what I want to say about Metal Gear Solid 5 is, despite all the flaws, of which there are many, I just think it has the most refined combat and the most refined customization of any Metal Gear Solid. I really love that you can go into the missions choosing any combat you wanted. I could take in like a tank, I could take in like a rocket launcher, I could go in complete stealth mode. Like I just absolutely loved like how much customization there was and how much you could basically just play that game like exactly your own style.
Yeah, I mean for sure. I got that sense of it the bit that I played it. But again, I felt like I think maybe my feelings towards open world games kind of comes out a little bit in that game. It feels a little bit like because everything is in this like Afghanistan landscape,
Yeah.
and to me, it just felt like it wasn't varying enough, and it was kind of a little bit boring.
It was. It was very boring. And there's not a whole lot in that open world either. There's a lot of just empty space where you just have to like drive over with a car or something.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing to even do.
Yeah, and it's to me, it's a little bit a shame because that opening sequence of that game is so freaking cool. And it's like everything that I love about Metal Gear Solid 2 because you're like, there's like that scene, you're like crawling through the hospital and you're like hiding under the bed and it's like all this mysterious stuff's happening around you, and then you get dumped into this like Afghanistan world, and you're just like, okay, and then you go back to the boat, and you're like, I don't know. To me, it's a little weird, but maybe I need to go back and play it some more.
Yeah, you just need to accept that game with its flaws. You need to know that it's not going to be a traditional Metal Gear Solid game. But I think when you beat it, you'll appreciate some of the story connections it has with the other games. And it is cool to see like not baby, but really young, like Liquid Snake. Like Liquid Snake's a kid in the game.
Mhm.
It's kind of cool to run into his character. And like Otacon, I think that's his guy's name, the smart guy. He's in there, and like I just thought the gameplay is really solid, but take that with a grain of salt because there definitely are big flaws with Metal Gear Solid 5, and the open world stuff pretty much just falls on its face.
All right. So my next game is the game we both love. And it's actually the first entry that I played in this long storied series, but God of War is really great, and I don't even think I really have to talk about it that much because it speaks.
We did a whole episode on
We did a whole episode on it, and it really, really speaks for itself. But I think just how cinematic that game feels, like when you're on the boat with your son, and you're talking about the story, and they do that to kind of like avoid the loading times, but everything just feels so fluid and natural and fun. It really, really opens your eyes to kind of like what the gaming medium is capable of, and it's kind of like a type of storytelling that is kind of rare and kind of really, really fun and interesting. Like I found myself really getting into the Norse gods and stuff, and trying to learn about them, and it was really bringing to life like so much of that mythology, and it was really cool.
Yeah, totally. I agree with that 100%. I'll just add the combat in there a little bit. Like, I just think the combat was also so well done because, like, the original God of War games had really fun combat, but they were basically like button mashers at the end of the day. Like, they're so frantic. And the new game, the new God of War captured some of that element, but it also had a lot more, I think, strategy and like how you use your attacks, how you dodge, how you like block attacks. Like, it's a hard game to like, you can die so easily. And like, but the difficulties really like welcomed, like, it basically just makes you, like, refine your own combat skills, and it just seemed like such a mature take on, like, the old God of Wars, and I just thought they beautifully meshed both the story and the combat, and basically just completely rebooted and matured the series without deleting the old stuff. Like, Kratos' like, fucked up past is still there.
Hmm. Yeah, man. I love that a lot of games are really doing this, and I think it's kind of like really symbolic of kind of where gaming is, but like having this like really deep respect for kind of like the legacy of gaming and where games have come. Like
Mhm.
like we really saw it with like Mario Odyssey, especially. Like you have like this ode to the old, but also like new as well, kind of mixed together. And yeah, like when you're when you have your battle axe or whatever the whole game, and then you pick up the, what is it,
The Blades of
the blades
Chaos.
of chaos, like seriously, like that moment, you're just like, holy shit, like you really feel it, because it really brings together like the old and the new. And then yeah, like and it hit me, and it was really surprising. I didn't expect it. I didn't know that ahead of time, that would be the case, because I thought like maybe they just have a different weapon in this game. But then you pick up like your old blades of chaos or whatever, and then it's just like everything about that is just really cool, to have respect for the old, but also like look forward as well. And yeah, no, it was really, really a great game.
It is. I mean, I gotta say that's like for me, it's like literally like Persona 5 versus God of War for like my absolute favorite game of the console. Like, it's really hard for me to pick between those two. And I probably don't even have to because they're both just so amazing. Um, I guess the last game I'll briefly mention, I know that I thought you'd really like this game, but I put on Transistor. Transistor is the very first game I ever played for my PS4, and it's a darling little indie game made by Supergiant Games, and I just really love it. Like, it's got such a cool combat system. Like, the combat, you can kind of slow it down and like pick your attacks. Like, you have a certain amount of time limit and battle points you can use. So it's sort of like an action RPG mixed with a strategy RPG, and I think that's what I really liked about it. And I also like the narration style. Like, it's kind of like your character doesn't talk. Like, that while you're going through this world, you kind of have this narrator that's talking to you and
Hmm.
unraveling the backstory. But you don't really need to get too invested in the story if you don't want to. And the whole thing ends up being this like 8 hour adventure. It's not time consuming. It's not something that's overwhelming. I just thought it was such a great introduction to the PS4. It's just playing this really cool indie game that was really one of the best indie games I've ever played ever. So, like, Transistor to me was phenomenal, 10 out of 10.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I think I made the mistake actually of getting the Switch version of that game, because I found out later that the PS4 version actually uses the speaker in the controller, and the voice of the sword actually comes out of your controller, which is really amazing. And
Yeah, it
I really
does.
wish that I had experienced that on the PS4. But I don't know. I guess it's just like for me it's just an indie game. I enjoyed aspects of it, but like
Just an indie
but
game.
for me it's, I don't know, the combat or something is just not as interesting. But um I certainly can appreciate why a lot of people would like that game. I think if you like that style of game, then you should definitely get it.
Yeah, it's at least worth trying. I mean, if you can get it on sale, I think I have it on the Switch now. I paid like $3 or $4
Oh,
for it
nice.
because I got that game for free on PSN, and I ended up like unsubscribing to PSN, so I lost it. So, and I saw it on the Switch for $4. I was like, hell yeah, I gotta have this game in my collection.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean it's fun. I'll definitely try and go back to it and at least beat it. But I mean that's okay. We don't have to agree with every single game.
Well, I think the last game on your list is a perfect one to end with because there's a sequel coming out next year.
Oh yes. Okay, so the last game on the list is drum roll. No, I'm sure most people familiar with PS4 games can guess, but it is
Well, I don't know because
really?
okay. I mean, maybe because I don't associate this game with PS4 as much as you do, but
Really? What do you what
you can.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. Well, it's The Last of Us, and this is a game that I've heard about for years. In the time that I didn't own a PS4, and when I got a PS4, it was one of the first games that I played. But the reputation of The Last of Us is like pretty much meteoric. It's very, very high up there on the list of the best games ever in a lot of people's minds. I think it really
Mhm.
comes down to just this really great story. It's kind of like a zombie apocalypse game. But interestingly, the it's not really that scary of a game. It's just more of the really, really refined combat, like the fighting. It's just great. It's really awesome. It has some like light puzzles. It's kind of like The Last of Us, but like maybe sorry, no. It's like Uncharted. That's what I was thinking of. It's like Uncharted with a little bit of the puzzles. Um, but I just think it's really refined and really fun, and the story's great, and I don't know. Everybody really loves that game. It's really fun.
Yeah, no, I totally share your praise for the game. I really loved it, and when I played that game, I knew I was playing like it was like as I was playing it, I knew I was playing one of the best games I've ever played in my life, and one of the games that would be considered one of the best games of all time. It was very apparent even just a few hours into the game. I think the reason I don't associate with PS4 is because I played this game on the PS3.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
It's the very last game I played before I left. Well, I lived in the USA before I left for Korea in 2013, and I knew about the game. I was really hyped for the game. I think I bought it like when it came out, and so I played and beat this game on the PS3, and I absolutely felt entirely the same as you. Now I do have the PS4 version. I just haven't gone back and beaten it on the
Hmm.
PS4. So I probably should do that again, but I just have like this laundry list of games, so it's not high priority. But yeah, The Last of Us, I mean, it's amazing. The story between Ellie and Joel is like absolutely one that's just going to like touch you. It sounds almost like weird to say, but it almost made me cry at a couple points of the game. There's a couple points of the game where I was like, "Oh my god, this can't happen. This just can't happen. Like one of my characters can't die, or like they
Yeah.
can't like this can't be the way this goes down." But no, I mean, and the combat is really cool. Like it's kind of got some first person shooter elements. You're like kind of like struggling. There's some stealth parts in there where you got to like really those parts are kind of scary with the clickers, and you got to kind of be like stealthy and try to maneuver your way through them. And the whole game, you're also kind of in this survival mode where you're trying to pick stuff up and craft items to survive. So it's got a lot going on. And yeah, it's an amazing game. And The Last of Us 2 is coming out in 2020.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's right. I guess it's technically a PS3 game, but I feel like it's such a classic game, and it has captured the imagination of so many people, and a lot of people like myself. We played it in the PS4 era, so
Hmm.
um, so yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I'm really glad Sony brought it to the PS4.
yeah, it seemed like a really smart move, um, really essential, I think, for the library, but.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, there's plenty of other games we could mention. There's plenty of other aspects, but for the sake of like one podcast and our time schedule, we're going to end it here. There could be like a PS4 part 2 eventually for stuff we didn't talk about, but we're really happy to be back. We hope you guys stick around and enjoy the new show and whatever new elements we might be throwing in. We're not going to be changing too much, and we're going to catch you guys on the next episode.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Pixel Meditations. We hope you enjoyed the episode as much as we did. If so, please support us and help spread the word about the Pixel Meditations so we can reach new listeners. You can do this by simply subscribing to our podcast, leaving us ratings and reviews on your favorite podcast apps, and by sharing our content. Gaming is as important to you as it is us, so please get in contact with us for any requests, comments, or suggestions. You can find us on Twitter at Pixel Meditation, email at thepixelmeditations@gmail.com, and Facebook at the Pixel Meditations page. Catch you next time for another conversation somewhere in the depths of the gaming universe.